Enter Twilight Princess, one of the most hyped games of the past decade. No controversy there. Midway through the game, we're greeted to a cutscene involving Ganondorf's past. A warlord who sought to steal the Triforce and, you guessed it, take over the world.
Of course!
It's now at this point that we come face to face with what could possibly be the missing link, the chronicle of the original Ganondorf's destruction. At the very end of Twilight Princess, a very important scene occurs. The Triforce of Power leaves Ganondorf's body, and he suddenly dies. There's no other explanation for this, this is what's happening, he dies. If he still had the Triforce of Power, it would continue to resonate in the presence of Link's Triforce of Courage, and presuming she still has it, Zelda's Triforce of Wisdom. This is what's been established in every Triforce meeting since Ocarina of Time, so I doubt that fact can be disputed. Now, regarding the Howling Stones in Twilight Princess, I'm just going to mention it briefly. I do admit that the Ballad of Gales is in it, and there's some degree of difficulty placing it compared to the other songs. However, I challenge you to realize that every other song from the Howlstones besides the Twilight Princess song had been learned by the Hero of Time. No single Link has learned every song in that set, and seeing as how the Hero of Time knows every other previous song, it does seem to be a strong reference to the Link from Ocarina of Time. That said, the Howlstones seem to be there for more of the player's benefit, but who knows, it's a valid option. I mean, they have the Sheikah symbol on them, so all of these could be Sheikah songs passed down by generation. Now that we're done mapping the currently released Mothership titles, I'm going to go into some very long-winded explanations of each before I move on to the Escort titles. I do use a great deal of in-game evidence to present theories that fit my timeline. Little disclaimer, you may not see it, you may not agree, but it's simply my theories. And as I said, Nintendo designs these games with storyline last, so they don't have to be the final word for a storyline so labyrinthine. In fact, I dare say they have no idea what order a lot of these games takes place, because when they try to bridge one gap, another gap is formed based on past titles. And I don't really follow the literal legend theory either, just because there's a whole lot of games that point back to other games in the series. It's not just the same thing taking place over and over that's a standalone legend of sorts. There's a lot of links in between the games. For example, OOT to Twilight Princess, OOT to The Wind Waker, The Wind Waker and its direct sequels, OOT and Majora's Mask. It's just, there's so many games that are connected to OOT that it seems almost a bit foolish to just claim that they're all legends taking place over a period of time. And there's not a whole lot of games left over that would be considered separate from OOT, so my philosophy is, why not try to connect them? Let's start with Ocarina of Time itself. All signs point to this being the very first game of the main series. It introduces Ganondorf before his rise to power, and it states that the Triforce had lain dormant in the Sacred Realm ever since the goddesses formed Hyrule. I don't think anyone argues this point. It gives this particular Link a backstory of how his mother escaped the fires of war beforehand, which I tend to believe was a war against the Gerudo. See, every other race has very strong ties to the royal family, yet the Gerudo tend to be feared by the other Hyruleans. This, combined with the fact that the Gerudo Desert seems to be much less connected with Hyrule than Death Mountain and Zora's River and Kaguri Forest, and that Ganondorf is posing as an emissary of peace, leads me to believe that hostilities with the Gerudo were not new to Ocarina of Time. Anyways, this game's events continue somewhat normally until Link pulls the Master Sword. When he awakes, he arrives 7 years into the future, and here's where people's attention tend to divert and vary by huge degrees. We always look at this concept as traveling backward and forward in time, which we don't know a whole lot about. Time is simply a measurement for humans' convenience, after all. Here's a little model for you. I think we look a little too closely throughout the whole 7-year gap in Ocarina of Time, almost a bit too literally. Let's look at it another way. In between the time that Link pulled the Master Sword and awoke 7 years later, where was he? He was in the Sacred Realm, the former resting place of the Triforce. Instead of a bridge of 7 years, let's look at it this way. I actually had a private conversation with TrueEdge 2097, and he found a very ingenious way of wording it, in that the two Hyrules, Hyrule A and Hyrule B, might not be connected by time so much as distance, like 2 points on a map, point A and point B. We see the blue light of the Sacred Realm every single time we place or pull the Master Sword. We just don't put it down and say, hey, we're in the past or future. We've described the change in time as parallel worlds, which I think is a very accurate description. No, not that insanely hard Zelda ROM hack, I'm talking about the concept itself. Where then is this bridge to the parallel world, or as some call it, the split in time, formed? I used to think it was right here, when Zelda supposedly sends Link back. However, with this model in mind, I tend to think that the split was formed right here. Opening the door of time, and the very first time he pulled the Master Sword and created that bridge. This is where I find a flaw in True Edge's concept that he takes the Master Sword with him. According to my theory, when Link pulled the Master Sword and entered the Sacred Realm, this is a world that we know very little about, so it's hard to say anything definite. And I'm more inclined to believe that there's a little bit of evidence from A Link to the Past that shows us exactly how we can interpret it. A Link to the Past, you notice that when the Triforce was claimed, a parallel world to the Light World was formed, that parallel world being called the Dark World. Everything about this world was exact in every way, except it was very perverse and changed into a very evil manner. Now, in some ways, the same thing could be said about the Hyrule A and Hyrule B in Ocarina of Time. Anyways, all that to say this, Zelda specifically says to Link, before supposedly sending him back, he must lay the Master Sword to rest and close the door of time. Well, let's take a look at the scene. We seem to be in the sky, but let's consider something else. Could we possibly be in the Sacred Realm already? Maybe, I don't know. The Sacred Realm's defining color tends to be blue. I think that we are, and Zelda's simply sending Link back to Hyrule in order to accomplish what she asked of him. Let's also analyze this. Zelda says goodbye to Link, as if she knows she will never see him again. Why would she say that if he's joining together the two worlds? She can easily see him again as a child, can't she? Well, according to True Edge and PG Prod, if Zelda can forcibly merge the two timelines into one, causing all that happened in the future to exist in the peaceful world of the past, where she, Link, and Ganondorf all have their Triforces and Ganondorf is sealed up, I would tend to think so. Draw the conclusions that you will, but I think Zelda saying a final goodbye to Link is significant. I think the problem that a lot of people have is that they automatically assume that Zelda is the quote-unquote Sage of Time. While she is the wielder of the Triforce of Wisdom, which is connected to Nehru, who is connected mostly to the aspect of time, I think people assume that she's the Sage of Time without any real evidence supporting it. From my standpoint, Zelda doesn't really demonstrate a whole lot of magical ability that's specific to one sort of element. You know, all she does is really open doors in Ganon's castle and help seal him up. That's all we know. She can transform her shape, too. All of these abilities tend to make me think that she's merely the Oversage, the leader of the sages. Take that at face value. I don't think that we need to really give her a title. But you may, of course, if that fits your theory. But try not to assume that much, as all we know is that Zelda is the leader of the sages, or as I say, the Oversage. Next is the significance of Wind Waker's statue of the Hero of Time in Hyrule Castle. True Edge mentioned that the Link on the statue is a child, and just the same, the Link described in the legend is spoken of as a young boy. Here's the problem. This is Hyrule Castle. Who would know of Link's exploits the most that's connected to Hyrule Castle? That would be Zelda. And it's feasible that she passed down the legend as well. Why then is the statue of a child? How does Zelda view Link in the ending of OOT? What does she say to him? She wants him to go home, where he is supposed to be, the way he is supposed to be. Zelda pities the fact that Link lost his childhood, and this quote means that despite his courage and virtue, she still considers him an innocent child. The child could easily be the form that Zelda remembers most fondly, and pass that legend down as such. Anyways, I think I've had enough talking about Ocarina of Time for now. Let's move on to the left side of my timeline, or Hyrule A, because it's definitely more complex than on the right side.